How y'all doing out there? The number one question that I get asked about music when I'm playing out is, do we really pay you for this? The second most popular question is, my kid wants to learn to play drums, how much should I pay for them? And the second, I should say the third most asked question is, how do you play fast with one hand? See, what I'm doing is I'm combining both of these things into one video because I'm too lazy to do two of them. So we'll just combine them. Starting off with the first question about how much should you pay, the answer is a qualified whatever you're comfortable with. Drums are shells, tubular shells, and they have membranes on either end. They either go bang, thump, or boom, and that's pretty much all they do. I mean, a drum isn't really, there isn't a whole lot in a drum that makes an expensive one really worth that much more than a cheap one in terms of its practicality. Now these particular drums are the cheapest money can buy. I got these at, I think it was Guitar Center. But you can get them at Sam Ash, you can order them online, all kinds of places. They're called Sound Percussion. And they're a laughingstock, they're a joke. I actually bought these because they would fit in my car. And I didn't expect that I'd ever use them much. But as it turns out, they actually worked out pretty well. The original heads, I had to replace those. These are just Aquarians. These are cheap heads. $6, $7, something like that. But they make a pretty substantial difference. On the bass drum, I had to replace the front head, the resonant head. The back one was just fine. The batter head was just fine. And I get a good tone out of it. I'll demonstrate in a minute. And on the snare drum here, I don't know if you can see this or not, but that is a Gibraltar throw-off. The one that came with this was terrible, so I replaced it with this. It was like $13. The big thing, believe it or not, these snares. These are Pure Sound snares. You may have seen these advertised and thought, well, why are these things so expensive? I'm not going to spend the money for them. Spend the money for them. I had no idea that these stupid wires could make such a difference, but good ones are better than cheap ones, or the ones that come with drums. I guarantee you these things make a big difference. Okay, so we got them in here, and I'll play a little bit of it, and you can see for yourself that they don't sound too bad. Sound just like a $4,000 drum set. This was $200, brand new, out the door. What I did do is pull the cheap plastic wrap off of these. It warped in the sun, and that was really there was nothing to actually refinishing them. I simply pulled the wrap off, got some stained them up, sprayed some polyurethane on, and they look just fine. They look like something Shelly Manne might have played back in the 1960s. Okay, let's get on to that fast playing thing, the one-handed thing. Some people call this a one-handed roll. It's not a roll, you're actually playing eighth notes is basically all you're doing. And it looks a little bit like this. There are several ways of doing this. The Buddy Rich way, and the way that a lot of people try to play these single stroke rolls, I can't really do it real well, but it's about as fast as I can do it. And all you're doing is you're catching the bounce of the stick as it comes up. And all you do is... The other way is known as the Muller technique, or the Mueller technique. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Basically, you're playing triplets, and once again, you're picking up on the bounce or the rebound of the snare drum. Sanford Muller brought this technique into play way back, and I believe it was back in the 30s. And guys, throughout the internet, you'll see people trying to teach the Muller technique. It's just triplets. They'll tell you that you have to do a whip-lash motion like this. You don't really have to do that. All you got to do is control it with your hand. Now remember that you're playing this thing traditional grip. On the other hand, it's... And you probably should try to practice them together. So you're playing triplets and you're just catching this on the bounce. Okay, that's the Muller technique. That takes some practice. Actually, I started doing this when I was a kid, and I didn't even know there was a guy by the name of Muller who actually taught this. So I've been doing this for 50 years. It's second nature to me. The final one, and the one people find most difficult, is the technique that Joe Morello uses, and is generally described as finger control, and it works like this. What you're doing, once again, is you're using the bounce of the snare drum. You're catching it with your index finger like this, or with your middle finger. Traditional grip. This won't work, generally speaking, when you're using the match grip technique. Sort of does, but it's not as good. And all you're doing here is you're as it bounces up, like that. This is really good if you're playing riffs and you're just doing like a jazz thing. I use it all the time. I don't even know I'm using it anymore. Like this. So, once again, it takes a lot of practice. You'll get Charlie horses in your wrist. The final one is a little trick that Johnny Rabb uses. You may have seen this on the internet. And this is a slick little trick. It actually works pretty well. All you're doing is you're bouncing the stick off the head, and you're using the rim as a fulcrum. I'll use this tom as an example, like that. The downside is you're going to hear that click right there, and depending upon how you hold the stick, you can modulate that, but watch how fast I can do this. And it's so easy, but you do have to practice it a little bit. You'll fool with it and you'll think, nah, I'm never going to get this, and all of a sudden you get it. So you put all these things together and you get wait for it. Well, that there's art.